Hello, welcome to the Illbleed video tutorial. I'm Punchy, and thank you for your interest in running this strange Dreamcast horror experience. Right out of the gate, this tutorial assumes that you do have some mechanical familiarity with how Illbleed works, as in you've played it through once or twice before. I'm not going to explain the basic mechanics to you. This is for people who are wanting to learn the nitty-gritty of the speedrun. So ground rule before we jump in, every single stage in Illbleed has 3 patterns of traps and enemy distributions, no more, no less. So this tutorial will teach you how to identify which pattern you're on, and what traps are contained within each pattern. However, you will probably not be able to memorize the contents of all 3 patterns. I highly recommend you go through this video and you write them down in a way that makes sense to you, that you can refer to while running. I still have my own notes, but the way I have it notated probably won't make sense to everyone, which is why I've decided to do this guide in video form instead of text. Okay, with that established, let's go. Okay, so we're rocking up on the first stage, the home run of death. If you haven't done this run a lot, I recommend you go to the item shop and you buy some gauze from the item store so you can restore your bleeding gauge, because that is the thing you have to care about for 90% of the run, and this stage doesn't have much in the way of pickups that you can work with. The game's unforgiving early on, you'll probably die. This first trap is unavoidable, so the first thing we're going to want to do in this stage is we're going to want to get the horror monitor, and then we're going to want to figure out which trap pattern we are on. So the horror monitor is in this corner. The horror monitor does not move. It is always in the exact same place, so you do not need to worry about this. This first trap outside of the house is the trap door. This is consistent across patterns, so this does not tell us anything. Okay, so we let that rock. We get into the house. Try to cut this sort of a line close to the pillar. Don't get too close to the desk. You might accidentally trigger a scare. And open the horror monitor. If the scare is the sight scare on this light bulb, you are on pattern A. So once you've identified that you're on pattern A, you need to hug the hard right for the rest of this hallway until you get to about here. The final door on the right side is also a scare. This is how pattern A works. We will deal with the other patterns in due time. Bank a hard right going around this corner because the scare is on the left light bulb. You need not tag every scare. If you know where they are, you can avoid them. Bank a hard right around this. The window scare is active on pattern A, so be careful of this, because if this hits you, this does a lot of damage. You can avoid it if you take a very tight corner. I don't have much luck with that, so I recommend just tagging it, because if you get hit by that, you'll probably end up resetting your run. In the shower room, you need to tag this corpse. It can be a bit of a pain. You need line of sight to tag something. You can't tag stuff through walls. So you need to kind of bank left to catch that one. And I don't actually think there's any other traps on pattern A. I think I'm just checking for no reason. Yeah, there are no other traps in the shower room active on pattern A. You can just traipse through. And that's how you get through the first hallway on pattern A. So let's take a look at how you deal with these things on pattern B. If you reach this point, and it's not the light bulb, it is guaranteed to be the door after the light bulb. But take a look at the smell sense in the top. If it's going off again, you're on pattern B, because it's this door directly to your left. You can avoid the door, and indeed everything in this hallway, by banking hard right around. But then you need to bank left in this hallway to avoid the light bulb on the right, because that's where the scares moved. Take this sort of a line through the shower room. The window is not active on pattern B. You can traipse through the shower room exactly in this way. Follow these lines precisely to avoid things. But you do need to tag this window scare, because that's where the hand has moved to. Again, if that hits you, that does a lot of damage, and you will cry. So don't get hit by that. And that's the whole thing of that on pattern B. Very simple, provided you follow the lines. And now, identifying pattern C. Second verse, same as the first. If it's not the light bulb, it's gotta be the door, but look at the smell sense again while this is going off. If it doesn't go off, you're on pattern C. And you can take this sort of a line, because every single scare is completely avoidable on pattern C. Bank hard right to avoid left light bulb, bank hard right through the shower room, and then go left through the shower room. The window scare is non-active here, and that's it. You can just run through the whole thing without stopping in one smooth motion on pattern C. Very simple. Makes the opening very easy and very quick, actually. Okay, I'm back to pattern A footage, although the pattern you're on for the next hallway does not matter in the slightest. That's why I've gotten rid of the letter in the corner. The next hallway is full of fights, all of which can be avoided if you just follow the left wall as hard as you possibly can all the way around. That's it. That's all you have to do. Does not matter which pattern you're on. Just do this. Until you hit the kitchen. Right, on pattern A, the scare is this bloodstain directly in front of you. And you can bank right around the kitchen to avoid everything else, and hit the top of the door. As you proceed out here, you can tag the ceiling fan and the space next to this table, because the space next to this table is a fight encounter. Pick this up, it's required. And if you tag a fight encounter, it won't knock you down when the fight starts, and also won't increase your heart rate, which gives you extra time to immediately run over and start mashing B to escape the fight. Which you can do very quickly there, but only if you don't get knocked down. See, the ceiling fan is also a scare on pattern A, and that's the kitchen area on pattern A. Now, on patterns B and C, the kitchen plays out identically, so what you need to do is you tag again the bloodstain, but you need to walk through the left side because there's a fight encounter on your right that you need to avoid. So tag the oven, tag this grill here, and tag again the top of the door. B and C play out exactly the same in this regard. But this part plays out differently depending on whether you're on pattern B or C. So again, tag the ceiling fan and the encounter next to the table. Except B only has the ceiling fan scare and not the fight encounter, because it's in the kitchen. Pattern C is similar to pattern A. Outside the kitchen, it has both the mandatory fight and the ceiling fan, so tag both, and you'll be good to go. This next segment, it doesn't matter which pattern you're on, walk through this door, tag the table to your left with the bottles on them, that is guaranteed to be a scare. Try to stay away from the TV and the mirror in either room, because they sometimes have scares on them, and then try to stay left in this room to avoid an enemy encounter. You do not need to jump, I don't know why I bother doing that. And when out in this hallway, tag this body. This body is always a scare regardless of the pattern you're on, and it will also always play a scare cutscene regardless of whether or not you tagged it, but it's still faster to tag it rather than get hit by it. Even though I don't actually think it does any damage. Anyway, on pattern A, it isn't this door next to it, but the door directly after that one, and it's unavoidable. You can't dodge it by banking hard left, so you gotta do it that way. All traps in the pattern B version of this hallway are avoidable by just following the left wall. You don't need to do anything else. And in the pattern C version of this hallway, the scare is technically the door after the corpse, but this one is avoidable by banking hard left, so you really don't need to do anything for this one either. As you proceed through this room, tag this spot near the stairs that has a consistent enemy encounter regardless of pattern, and make sure to collect Jimmy's trophy. You have to trigger this fight to proceed, but make sure you tag it so you have more time to get over here and pound the B button. Ideally, you don't want to, like, aggro the enemies to start this off with. Enemies don't actually start aggroed when you tag a fight, and those two guys are facing the wall, although they will notice you eventually. So dodge around and try to avoid them. There is a extra gauze you can pick up here if you need one. I usually pick this up because if I get hit by anything, I start to bleed to death. So this is a fun bonus fuck you. Be careful coming up these stairs when you're on pattern C, because this trap is only present on pattern C and has no equivalent on other patterns. After that trap, make sure to tag this guaranteed encounter near the bathroom. This doesn't matter what pattern you're on, it's always this one. Snap back to pattern A real quick. Be careful when coming around this corner on pattern A, because there is a weird wall trap that has no equivalent in the other patterns. This catches people out a lot and does a lot of damage, and from this point onward, these next few rooms are pattern agnostic. Take this line through the room, tag this space near this chair. This encounter is unavoidable as far as I know, you have to take it. Try to bait this guy into attacking you, and then run over to the helipad and press B. If you can confuse his pathfinding, so much the better, but I have no luck pulling that off consistently. And then finally we move on to the final hallway. Now, for the final hallway on pattern A, funnily enough, bank hard left and you'll avoid pretty much everything apart from this guaranteed enemy encounter at this lamp in the ceiling. It can be difficult to tell this apart from all of the other hanging light bulbs, but just remember to tag that one, I guess. I don't know, I just have the sense for it. I don't have a mnemonic or anything. But otherwise, the only trap to avoid on pattern A is this door on the back left, this one. You see, I can't tag it because I don't have line of sight. I've got to move over to the right slightly to get line of sight and tag it from there. This is a pain to do and is less than ideal, but you gotta do it, because that trap will set you on fire. Hilariously, on pattern B, aside from the forced enemy encounter, if you bank hard left, you will encounter absolutely no traps. You don't need to do anything on pattern B to avoid the final hallway. Pattern C has the most complicated version of the final hallway, and by that I mean you actually have to pay attention to traps before the encounter. When you reach about this point, pay attention to this door on the left. Again, you need line of sight. This can be very awkward to finagle. And the guaranteed enemy encounter on the lamp up there is still guaranteed. So you still gotta tag it. You also have to bank a hard left when you're going into the fight if you don't want to accidentally trigger a scare on the right side, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, you can just bank hard left once you're past the fight, and there you go. And excitingly, that's where all the differences between patterns end. I no longer have to cut between 3 different takes every 5 seconds. Excellent. I can just get on with it. So first you have to solve the puzzle in this room to start the mini-boss encounter. Use the testimonial on this part of the wall and the trophy on the other part of the wall. If you forgot to pick them up, yes, you do have to walk all the way back and go get them. Please don't forget to pick them up. It's not good. And you can start the mini-boss encounter. Bambalo is invincible for this part of the mini-boss encounter. Fighting him will do you no good whatsoever. So what you want to do is you want to bait him like this. That confuses the shit out of his pathfinding. That's difficult to pull off. If you want to just bait him up into the ceiling so that he fires at you and you can run around him, that also is effective. I'm getting slapped around quite a bit. This is not really the optimal way of doing this in the slightest. But it's good enough, although it did make my blood gauge go a bit high. Okay, so the maze segment. I'm going to take the time to heal up here first, using triggers to speed up the menu opening animation. That is what we take the backup gauze for. There's an example for you. Try not to get hit as much as I did. Take exactly these paths and take these lines. Bambalo's appearances in the maze are consistent and avoidable if you practice these movements. So I banked left there. I already avoided him once because he spawned on the left. Turn around these corners. Try to keep your camera in the same sort of place as well. You may need to pause for a bit, wait for him to get close to you, and then you can jump around him like so. Know when to wait. Also know that Bambalo can sometimes screw you over by turning 90 degrees on a dime. It happens sometimes. Deal. You want to run kind of left middle-ish. Again, gotta wait, find an opening, get around there. That was actually quite tight. Bambalo's hitbox is fairly big. And then you reach the midpoint of the row of urinals. There are only... Actually, those are regular toilets, whatever. There's no items of any worth here to you. Bank hard left around this corner. Again, you might need to wait to create some space. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't have to. It will depend. Use your better judgment to avoid him. Turn around this corner. Keep following the wall precisely so, and then when you get to these corners, you need to take specific lines. You want to aim for, like, the middle of the path. Around here. You want to start aiming for the middle of the path. Get around him. He's spawning on my right. I keep him off camera. This is intentional, but he's on my right. If you stay towards the middle, you should be able to juke around him, like so. He can catch you quite easily on the swing there, which will lose a lot of time if it happens, and put you at risk of dying. So you run straight ahead into the boss fight. That was a shame pause, because I tried to skip the cutscene too early. And we move on to boss number 1. So what you want to do for this boss fight is run into Bambalo's shoulder. He'll try and shoot you with his flamethrower, but he has a blind spot directly next to him, so every time he tries to readjust, run forward a little bit, get a little micro dash in there, hit his shoulder, not like that, and smack him around a little bit. He might stumble from your attacks, but generally stick to his side and you should be able to kill him without taking too much damage. Just like that, no problem whatsoever. Skip these cutscenes. You cannot avoid saving Kevin, to the best of my knowledge. You kind of just have to take this sad sack of a human being with you. He sucks, but alas, we must save his life. If you took a lot of damage during the fight, this Amazon here will restore all of your properties back to full. Your bleeding goes to 0, your health goes to full, your heart rate reaches 0. If you're in good shape, run into the second part of the encounter, which is sort of not really a boss fight, it's more of a platforming challenge. This is a complete pain in the ass. The platforming in this game is really awkward. Try and jump as little as you possibly can. Like, try and ride lines between the platforms that means you don't have to jump. And every single time he takes a swing that even vaguely looks like it's gonna hit you, assume it will, because it will. And try not to jump even while he's winding up an attack, because he'll probably hit you on landing, if you're not very lucky about it. Your jump landing has pretty incredible recovery time on it. And all of his attacks do huge damage, and you can't heal because this counts as a combat encounter. So if you get slapped like 3 or 4 times, you're out. And also, try to control the direction your dodges go into so you don't fly off the platforms. I'm not doing a great job of demonstrating that. It's difficult, okay? And head to the security office. All you gotta do is mash the attack button coming out of this cutscene and you will immediately beam this security worker in the back of the head with a baseball bat. Collect his card. Oh my god, don't forget to collect his card. And all you need to do now is jump your way, all the way, back the way you came, and across a new path which will take you to the level's exit. Again, in order to optimize your jumping across these platforms, try to jump as little as possible. Stay out of the water because you move painfully slowly when you're in the water, but try to take lines that mean you don't have to jump. The gap that you can walk over and get away with it is larger than you probably expect it to. Honestly, this is not a good example of movement I'm giving you right now, but it is a good example of not getting killed. My other takes were not as successful in that regard, so you can kind of walk over these without having to jump between the two of them. So that is helpful. But otherwise, just sort of awkwardly jump your way to victory. Okay, and once you reach the end, it should be noted that this game has the awkward requirement of key items not being used automatically on interacting with stuff. You have to manually open the menu and use a thing. Every time. There are no free rides in Illbleed. And that clears the very first stage of Illbleed. That was a lot to take in for stage 1, wasn't it? I'm so sorry. There's still 5 more to go.